Welcome to the Ringer Fantasy Football Show. My name is Danny Heifetz, and I'm joined by Danny Kelly and Craig Horlbeck. And today it is Power Hour, where we power rank something every Wednesday. And today, honestly, not such a normal Power Hour. We are going to just have a vibes conversation. We're just going to talk through this coaching cycle and all the teams that need coaches, all the coaches that can be hired, who we think will and who we think should go where. Because I think this is the most interesting coaching cycle in years. And I think it was that way before Bill Belichick went to UNC. I think it's more interesting to look at who's going to go where now that Belichick's out of the conversation. And this is also prelude to the Ringer NFL Draft Show. If you guys are just following us for the first year, we don't stop at the end of the season. We cover the offseason. We cover coaches getting fired. We cover coaches getting hired, free agency, trades, and the draft, where DK scouts a crazy amount of players, all the guys in the draft. He has his big board. He has scouting reports. He has the best scouting reports and the best.
And I scout one guy every year. I pick one.
Yeah, three. But like, we really do cover the whole gamut. We cover the whole offseason. We don't stop. We go right through the draft. And then we also we go the whole summer. So if you have enjoyed listening to us this season, to be totally honest, I actually think the offseason show is more fun. I think it's a really good time. And so the first part of that with the Ringer NFL Draft Show is who's going to be running these teams. Because, I mean, half the teams picking in the top 10 are probably going to have new coaches. So we'll go through all this. So this is really the beginning of our offseason content. There's a lot of really big teams with big opportunities, a lot of big coaches. So we'll get into it. And we're going to just riff here. But I want to start with the teams that have already have coach openings.
We should say Tom is on break.
Yeah, it's on vacation.
Checked out on vacation a little early, long holiday break. So Tom not going to be involved today, but kind of a slacker move by Tom, actually, but it's okay.
Well, they have the PTO days expire for Tom by the end of the year.
They don't
He had to take them.
Yeah. Have to get him in ahead of Christmas. So Tom's on PTO. So I want to start with the Bears because, one, the Bears have already fired their head coach and also the offensive coordinator. But obviously the Bears had that horrific Monday Night Football game where they were like embarrassed by the Vikings. And I want to start with what is now, I think, very obvious, which is Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Lions, is considered the best offensive coaching candidate. The Bears need an offensive coach, probably for Caleb Williams. And so everyone is just in agreement, well, Ben Johnson should be the coach of the Bears. Like, that should be who the Bears want, number one. And I want to get to whether that should be Ben Johnson's choice in a moment. But do you guys start to feel that this is like a pregame show where like all 11 people on the NBC pregame are picking the same team to win? Like, are you almost concerned that it's December 17th and we've all just decided how to fix the Bears, who have been a mess for like 30 years? Like, are you almost concerned that there's like total unanimous agreement, Craig, that everyone is just in on Ben Johnson?
I mean, if we've learned anything from George Costanza, it's that when everybody's moving one way, you go the other. Yeah, it does feel like the groupthink here is quite strong. And yeah, it's like when Chalamet went on game day, he was the only guy who picked, I forget what team it was, and he was right. Ohio. He was right. Ohio won. Yeah, I guess, is this a Caleb thing? And it's clear that Caleb is the easiest reclamation project, and Ben Johnson is the person to do that. Is that, DK, you think why everybody feels that the Bears are the best landing spot for Ben Johnson just because of Caleb? Or is it kind of an entire roster? The general management, I think, has been actually pretty bad over the last few years.
Right. I think the dot connecting is happening because Caleb, and this is something people were saying like before last year when Eberflus was like retained as the coach. They're like, this is only going to last like a year or two because at some point you need to pair your good young quarterback with an offensive coach long term. It's like the Andy Reid, Kyle Shanahan, the teams across the NFL where they have their offensive coach, Sean McVay, and the Bears need to get their version of Sean McVay is basically what like so many people said during the offseason. And then, of course, we see what happens this year. It's a total disaster. They fire Eberflus halfway through the season. Shane Waldron is a total dud. And now we're kind of back at square one. The problem, I think, with this is I don't think we know exactly what Ben Johnson wants to do. Like, I don't know if he's going to want to go to Chicago. Well, that's the problem.
He turned down, I believe, Seattle and Washington, right? Last year? Or was he offered the job?
2 years in a row. So 2 years ago, the Panthers offered Ben Johnson the coaching job, and he said no, which I mean, sounds pretty smart. And then last year, Washington really wanted Ben Johnson, and he turned them down. Like it was a whole thing. Basically, Washington, all the owner and the GM, everyone was on a private plane to Detroit, and he texted them while they're on the plane, it said turn around. Like they turned the plane around. And then they leaked a bunch of stuff and they were really salty about it. But
Seattle as well or no?
I don't remember exactly what the deal is with Seattle, but Ben Johnson.
I want to say Johnson took himself out of the running in Seattle.
So
I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think that's what happened.
So if he took himself out of Washington and Seattle, that means, and I guess Carolina, that means, and if it was Carolina 2 years ago, it was when they had the number 1 overall pick, right? Or no?
Carolina, they had traded out. Well, actually, no, I guess it was January. Yeah, they did have the 1 pick. But I think the issue was David Tepper had fired so many people at that point. It was unattractive. And then last year, what the word that came out from Ben Johnson was that this is all reported. But the idea was that Ben Johnson thought Washington was, quote, basketball guys. Like he thought that
Bob Myers.
It was Bob Myers, who's the Warriors GM who retired, who is like working with Josh Harris, who owns the Sixers, and Washington. And it was like, they're basketball guys. I'm out. And there was just something about it that was weird. And I don't know. I hear those stories and I'm like, on one hand, I really respect it. Like it sounded like Ben Johnson's point was like, you know what? You usually get one crack at being a coach. You want it to be the right one. And I felt like 2 years ago, he was like, I don't want to work for Dave Tepper because he's a crazy person and fires people.
He's impetuous.
And last year, I actually thought it was also the Lions should have made the Super Bowl. And I think it's really cool to be able to bring the Lions to the Super Bowl. And he has to make this decision. You have to make the decision like the next day you lose that game. And you're like in the fourth quarter, you think you're going to win. And I think there was an emotional element too. But I also hear that I'm like, maybe there is something wrong going on here. I don't know.
I think there was also, this was like whispers behind the scenes that were happening too. And I don't know. I don't have any like first person experience with Ben Johnson, but like, I think there was maybe a little bit of like, I'm not going to get the job, therefore I'm going to quit type of deal where he was like, I'm taking my name out of the hat because I don't think I'm going to get the job. And he didn't want to be embarrassed.
I'm not breaking up with you, or you're not breaking up with me. I'm breaking up with you.
With Team DK?
With the Seahawks and the Commanders initially. I don't know about the Commanders, but like I think throw out the Seahawks there. Maybe he had the feeling that he wasn't going to be the one that gets the job.
The Commanders one, from what I understand, he was definitely going to get the job because I mean, there's no bigger tell. They interviewed Dan Quinn, sent him home on coach. Like Dan Quinn got caught by a Washington Post reporter going through like regular TSA at Reagan Airport. And then they got on their private plane and flew to Detroit, got a text, turned the plane around. Dan Quinn flew back on the private plane.
A pretty big flex from our boy BJ.
Yeah. I could go either way. Part of me is like someone who like actually is offered multiple head coaching opportunities and turns both down. I'm like, I kind of want him more, like Jon Snow style, like reluctant leader.
Well, I think that's Ben Johnson's whole deal here. He has so much leverage because number one,
he's marketed himself quite well,
right? And he has the flexibility to be like, look, this year wasn't a fluke with the Lions. Like the offense is coming back. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be able to make this thing a juggernaut again. I'm going to continue to build my resume. So he had like a pretty rare opportunity where it wasn't like, you know, a lot of these guys that get opportunities and become hot coordinators or you know, that like get into the head coach circuit, it's like a variety of factors kind of elevated them to that point. And maybe this next year, it's not going to look the same. And I'm going to like lose my opportunity here to get a head coaching career or a head coaching job. And so he had the flexibility to be like, look, I'm going to go back in this offense. It's going to kick ass again. So that's going to look good for me. I'm going to have a chance to win a Super Bowl. You know, there's multiple variables here. And then this gives him the opportunity to really, you know, get the best situation where you have a stable franchise, you know, potentially like a really good relationship with GM, whatever it may be, and a good quarterback. And I think in you know, Connor Orr for Sports Illustrated writes an article every year that headlines the top coaching candidates. And he wrote in his article this year that those are the three things he's essentially looking for in a head coaching job. It's like stability, like a patient owner, a quarterback, and like a pretty good roster. So DK, he's setting himself up Johnson, to like,
do you want the Bears? Like, do you think the Bears are the best job?
I don't know. I don't think so, honestly.
Why not?
I think that stability, I mean, obviously they are, I don't know. I just feel like the Bears are just such a mess. Like, who wants to take over that?
I think a lot of these teams are messes.
Dude,
I really respect what Ben Johnson is doing. It's really hard, I feel like, not to just immediately jump at a head coaching gig.
Oh yeah, because there's so much money too. It's like generational wealth.
That's true too. Yeah, totally. You go from making $1 million a year to like 6.
You know what's funny is I realized when we were kind of preparing for this and I was reading stuff, I kind of realized I don't know anything about Ben Johnson. Like Ben Johnson kind of came out of nowhere to me. He's 38 years old. This guy was in Miami for a long time. And then he's been on the Lions. He started as a tight end coach, has worked his way up. And, so it's like, he turns down the Panthers job, Tepper, that whole thing's a mess. Maybe he didn't like Bryce Young. Then he turns down Washington, who had the number 2 overall pick, probably knew they were going to get either Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of interesting. Maybe Seattle, whether or not he had to say if he actually could get that job with Geno Smith. So it's like he's clearly making these concerted decisions about, like, he has an image in his head of what he wants.
Yeah.
And it's also, you have to, like, he has the best spot imaginable right now. Like, he has an amazing roster, offensively, defensively. He's got so many late round picks that have worked out on offense. A lot of their trades have hit. He's revived Jared Goff. So, like, I kind of understand, what I honestly think Ben Johnson should do? I think Ben Johnson should stay. And I think we should enter this new era of, everybody, it's like, oh, Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator, going to leave the Chiefs to get to get a head coaching job. No, he's been staying for so long because he's been a head coach basically twice. Nobody wants him anymore. He's like 65 years old. And that's working right now for the Chiefs. I feel like if I'm Dan Campbell, I go in like I'm Jennifer Aniston on Friends, and I say, Matt LeBlanc makes the same what I make.
Right.
You know what I mean? David Schwimmer makes what I make. Ben Johnson makes what I make, and he stays. And maybe Ben Johnson wouldn't want to do that, but I feel like that's the new future, is like, figure out how to get your culture guy and your guru and keep them together rather than having to split them apart and either have a culture guy run an offense and try and get a new guru every 2 years, or you have the guru start his own situation like Mike McDaniel, and maybe he doesn't have the like head coaching prowess to like command a team. It's like the key is to keep them both together, I think.
There's an offensive coordinator issue, like the college football has a quarterback transfer portal issue. There is something where I think I don't think there's any offensive coordinators that have been outside of the head coach play callers that have been in the same spot for more than 3 seasons. So there is like a shuffling that's going on. That's a problem. I don't think it's the future, just because I think this was a specific situation. This was one last job. This was like, hey, delivering a Super Bowl to Detroit would be special. And in the aftermath of it, like, it's the next day, and he made it. I think it was informed, and it was your heart and your gut were aligned in the. What if we could win a Super Bowl for Detroit too? But this has got to be the offseason, because you have your pick of the litter. And to DK's point, I look at the Bears. I think the Bears are a really mixed situation, because I think Caleb Williams is great. I think he's going to be fantastic. I look at the Monday Night Football game last night, and I understand they got blown out. The 2 criticisms out of that game and the whole season: one, the video of Caleb going to the bench. And like, it was like he's in pain. One, if you didn't watch the game, he was getting the shit kicked out of him. I don't want to hear anything about that video.
I texted you guys. I was not watching the game. We had a live rewatchables last night, so I was working that. And I only saw the clip. I couldn't even listen to the audio. And I was like, he either looks like he's having an orgasm or he's getting his leg cut off. What is happening? Which is
that's the spectrum, horseshoe theory. They both kind of look the same. But no, I just look at Caleb. I don't know. I have no issue. I think Caleb's going to be a superstar still. And I look at this team, and I know he's played terribly. I know the Bears' offense is terrible. But where is the coaching? I don't know. I don't understand the criticism. It's like they fired Eberflus because like I know that was tough. But yeah, the defense fell apart. He was running the defense. Then the offense falls apart because your offensive coordinator's gone. The passing game coordinator, Thomas, is now the head coach. Like, he's not getting coached. That's why he's doing too much. I think he's
spending more time on the offense now.
So the one thing I'll say about the Bears that's a weird part of this thing, the Bears, so the mom who owns the Bears is 101 years old. She has 10 kids.
Oh,
5 of them work for the team.
Yeah.
5 of them don't. They're all in their 50s or 60s. All of them own 4% of the Bears. That's weird. It's like Succession. There was only 4 kids? There's 10 McCaskies. And like, imagine, so navigating that's weird. They're going to have to sell the team. What they want to build a stadium and sell. So like, that's a weird dynamic too. But DK, if you don't think the Bears are the best team, like, what do you think is a better team than the Bears to go to?
I think there's better teams out there that are less likely to have an opening, I guess.
But of the main ones, right? Like, it's like probably the Jaguars,
no, I'm not talking
the Raiders, the Giants.
It's easy for us to sit here and say like, oh, if the Bengals fire Zach Taylor.
No, we can't do that.
But that just to do that really quick, Marvin Lewis, his tenure as head coach for the Bengals was longer than the Iraq War. So he won no playoff games. And he was the coach longer than the Iraq War. Zach Taylor was in the Super Bowl 3 years ago. Like, I don't think they're going to fire Zach Taylor.
They're not firing Zach Taylor. They're probably going to end the season with a winning record. Like, it'll be fine. It's basically Bears, Patriots, or not even Patriots. It's basically Bears, Jags, Raiders, Saints.
Let's do it real quick. So jobs that are already open. Bears, Jets, Saints. Bears are better than those Bears a better job than Jets or Saints. Probably firing someone. Giants, Raiders, Jaguars, maybe Cowboys. I think the only one you would argue is a better job than those is the Jaguars.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's like, and that's really debatable. I guess you're right, man. It is kind of crazy to think about it. Like my thought, if I'm Ben Johnson, is like maybe I just wait for another cycle. This offense is going to be really good again.
I'm surprised that
he's 38.
What are you waiting for? You have
38.
2 number 1 picks. Lawrence and Caleb Williams are both out there, and like they both have better offensive lines than you usually get in these kind of situations.
Right.
I don't know. I think the Bears and the Jags
just so much depends on what's going to happen, I guess. So like the pros for the Bears, they have a good quarterback, I think. They have plenty of defensive talent. They have a good amount of cap space.
They have the best
for next
roster
year.
of all of these teams.
They have $62 million in cap space next year right now, which is 6th most in the NFL. So they're set up for long-term success. The problem is, are they going to keep Ryan Poles? Does Ryan Poles vibe with Ben Johnson? Yes.
Can I give a weird take? I kind of don't know if Ryan Poles has a great case to keep his job if there was any like objective evaluation here, because Ryan Poles' whole job.
What did it for you? The Chase Claypool trade? Which one?
Well, that's my thing. A crazy thing that never gets talked about. You know how everyone says, oh, look, the Panthers got Bryce Young and the Bears got like DJ Moore and they ended up with Caleb Williams and all this stuff. Do you realize what we would be saying about Ryan Poles if the Panthers had just taken CJ Stroud and won 8 games? Because then the Bears would have traded out of the CJ Stroud pick,
right,
for the 14th pick in the draft, probably, and they never would have gotten Caleb. They would have got, they would have had the 14th pick, and they would just have DJ Moore and not CJ Stroud. And then you look at the rest of the record, and I'm like, okay, the Montez Sweat trade worked out, but yeah, the 32nd pick being traded for Claypool, like letting Darnell Mooney go to pay $5 million more to Keenan Allen, who's 5 years older, and I'm like,
I think that's aged a little bit better as the season's gone on, though.
Yeah, Keenan Allen's playing well. I don't know. I look at Ryan Poles and I'm like, if you think Ben Johnson needs a GM to come in, like the Kyle Shanahan coming with John Lynch on matching 6-year contracts, I don't know. Sheil Kapati always says that you want to bring your coach and GM and say no infighting, no leaking. You're both going to get fired together or not at all, so learn to work together. I feel like that's what you got to do. And when you kind of fire one person, but the GM stays, it's always like a weird thing. So
I think basically you're right. I've come around. I think the Bears probably are the best job right now that we know of. I think the problem is, I don't feel confident that Ben Johnson wants to go coach for this team. I guess that's where I am.
Do you think? Yeah, look, I agree. When it's all said and done, I think they have the best roster, the most juice. They have Caleb, like good city. Draft 3 offensive linemen and go to work is kind of my opinion on that.
It's also honestly, does it matter that they're in the division?
That's what I was going to ask.
I think a little.
That'd be kind of weird, right? Ben Johnson. I mean, if he wins a Super Bowl for Detroit, I almost think it's easier to go interdivision.
You want to go up against Dan Campbell now?
But if they lose, if they don't win the Super Bowl this year, and then he goes to Chicago and then starts to beat Detroit, that would be
I think
interesting, yeah.
Apple test, skin, meat, core. It's yes, no, yes. Like, of course it matters. It's in the division. And then you get in the meat of it, like, look, he's going to go somewhere. Everyone's happy for him. Like, you just take the best chance. It's a business, professional. Core, of course it matters. Of course the Lions are going to take it personally. Of course the Lions are going to kick your ass. Of course you're going to have to feel, can you measure up to Dan Campbell? Of course it's going to be weird if you're replaced and it's fine. Of course it's going to be weird if the Lions kick the shit out of you every time. Like, it is weird. I'm not saying that should influence this decision, but it is very intelligently and politely lying through your teeth to pretend like that's not a thing.
Do you think Dan Campbell would congratulate him and not care? Or do you think deep down he'd be like, fuck you?
Both.
Like the Larry Bird, Magic Johnson.
Both. I think that he genuinely would be happy for him. And also they're actually absolutely going to set out to destroy him. That's just like the nature of being a pro. But I think the only thing, but if he doesn't go to Chicago,
Jacksonville.
I think Doug Peterson's toast. I mean, every week there's a report that basically they're waiting for a 3-touchdown loss to fire Doug Peterson. And
won't do it.
I know it won't do it. Yeah.
Team's too dialed.
I look at the Jags.
Sassy Mac.
Yeah. I do think with the Jags job, Deke, I'm curious what you think, because I look at the Jags as location. Quarterback. That's Trevor Lawrence. I don't care what people say about Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is one of the best quarterbacks in the history of, I could take a coaching job here for a bad team.
Yeah.
Very few people get to take a job with the Trevor Lawrence. Mm-hmm. Location, divisional politics. You're talking about, I mean, you go to the Bears, you got to fight off the Vikings, Packers, Lions. Those are 3 of the best 6 coaches in the NFL.
They're set up really well for the long term. Yeah.
Yeah. with the AFC South, I mean, again, the NFC North with that Bears job is tough. AFC South, all right, the Titans, the Colts, the Texans, I can work with that. It's good divisional politics and media attention. The Jaguars, I think sometimes there's more heat on the University of Florida coach than there is in the Jaguars. So, like, that's a really good trifecta. And it's just a matter of can you get rid of Trent Baalke, the GM, who's like a cockroach, who somehow beat Jim Harbaugh in a power struggle 10 years ago? And is the son, Tony Khan, going to like run his weird wrestling startup company and then pop in and tell you what to do every now and then? But if you sort that out, I think the Jags are actually a really good job.
You know what's nice about the Jags, and it's different from Chicago, is there's no culture in Jacksonville. And I mean that as a positive. Like in almost in the same way that there's really no culture with the Chargers. And Harbaugh could come in and just spread his tentacles and completely take over. Ben Johnson will be able to walk into Jacksonville and be like, this is all mine. I can do whatever I want. There's no Bob Kraft, Patriot, Belichick.
You're not in anyone's shadow.
Anything. No.
Yeah.
Like, he walks in and he is like immediately the best coach the Jags have ever had.
Well, that's Craig.
Tom Coughlin, baby.
It's interesting because that's exactly what I wrote when I was taking notes on the Jags. Is like, my opinion, the best candidate is a culture guy, because you have an opportunity to like lay the foundation, reset. I think one of the big issues right now with the Jags is just like ground up. They just don't really have like a tradition, a culture, like a mantra, anything really there. It's just like, I don't know, like Doug Peterson kind of seemed like he was brought in as like, you're going to pair up with this quarterback. You're going to, fix the offense, and we're all going to go from there. I think they need a guy that's more in line with like a Vrabel, Dan Campbell, guy who commands immediate respect from everyone on the roster. And the fan base and the media. And I don't know, like, I'm just thinking like, maybe this isn't also like not a great fit for Ben Johnson, I don't think he's going to be a culture guy. I think he's going to be like scheme. I
think Lawrence is honestly, I think this is a solid spot for Ben Johnson, but I agree. If you're Mike Vrabel, though, and I think Mike Vrabel, I think Belichick was the best coach on the market. I understand why he didn't get hired, but I also think it's a little silly. I think Vrabel's the second best culture guy. I think Vrabel's like going to be like, I think Vrabel has a 20% shot at being like the next Mike Ditka. Obviously, all these guys might fail. I'm most confident that Mike Vrabel won't fail. And if you're Vrabel, I think there's 3 spots you're looking at, and the Jaguars are one of the 3 for everything you guys just said. The Patriots, I don't think they're going to fire Gerard Mayo, frankly, because Bob Kraft is kind of being a little bitch for the whole year of just like his Belichick got fired victory lap, making the documentaries. Like, there's frankly too much stubbornness to admit that Gerard Mayo was a miss. I don't think he'll admit it, because this whole year was about proving that it wasn't Brady and Belichick. It was Brady, me, and Belichick. And having said that, if there was any objectivity to New England, they would fire Gerard Mayo, hire Mike Vrabel, give Mike Vrabel the organization. Mike Vrabel is 100% the spiritual successor to Bill Belichick's coaching legacy. And it's crazy to think that they're could hand the organization to Vrabel, give him Drake May. I think they could challenge the Bills for the division as soon as 2026 if they did that. And they're not going to do it because they're cowards. So if you're Vrabel, I think that's number one, but you look at the Jags as like one of the other top 2 things on the market.
I think Vrabel would be a great fit for Jacksonville. That's like the way I'm looking at it right now. It's like, just come in there. He commands respect. And you know what I mean? Like, he's going to create this new culture there. The Titans always punched above their weight in terms of like, they were never like a really great roster, but they were going to the playoffs.
The game Lombardi brought up all the time when he almost beat the Chiefs with Malik Willis throwing 3 passes in a game. That was one of the most incredibly coached games I've ever seen.
If you go back and look at what Vrabel did with the Titans, he was the coach there for 6 years. Year 1, 9-7. Year 2, 9-7, went to a conference championship. Year 3, 11-5. Then he went 12-5. They were a 1 seed.
Yeah.
Then they got hurt with Tannehill, and then he had Will Levis. Like, I mean, Vrabel did a very, very, very good job with that Tennessee offense. And we hit Arthur Smith with him too. He did a great job.
We got an email from someone saying basically, why are we so up Vrabel's ass? And like, why are we into Vrabel? And like, oh, well, he hasn't won that many games. And I'm like, it's about doing more with less. And that is going to be the theme of a lot of what I think about these coaches. But you look at Vrabel, and in a short amount of time, beat the Ravens in the playoffs. Kicked the absolute shit out of the Buffalo Bills. Like, I think he beat the Bills 28-3 on a Monday Night Football game.
Dude, he was a 1 seed with Ryan Tannehill. I think you just stop there. 1 seed.
But all these Super Bowl contenders, the Ravens, Bills, Chiefs, he kicked their fucking asses in December and January. And to your point, more with less more than anyone. And I was the only other spot I think he could go that I think makes sense. Austin Gale, who works here at The Ringer, and he's a huge Raiders fan. I was talking to him this morning. I think he's dead right. I think Mike Vrabel goes to the Raiders. And
Yeah, I can see
all of
that.
it aligns. Tom Brady is now a minority owner there, and Mark Davis is going to lean on Tom Brady. You know who else? Richard Seymour, another Patriots defender. Like, Mike Vrabel comes in, culture guy, Raiders. I think that makes a ton of sense. Tom Telesco is like the weakest one-year GM I've ever seen. Tom Telesco, GMs never get a second shot. He did. And then the team sucks. Honestly, Mike Vrabel's kind of like if Antonio Pierce had played for Bill Belichick his whole career. And so I actually think it makes a ton of sense. I don't know.
I think it makes sense, but do you think if Vrabel was offered, hey, you can be the coach of Trevor Lawrence and the Jags or Caleb Williams and the Bears, or you go to the Raiders, you think he would rather go to the Raiders just because of the family ties?
That's where it's hard to put yourself in the shoes, because I think that's where I'm curious, and I don't know the answer, if you're Mike Vrabel, are you looking at the team level of, well, I got Trevor Lawrence and I have these people, or are you looking at ownership level and you're like, on one hand, I have, Shad Khan, the Jaguars owner, and his son's involved. Or do you look at the Raiders? You're like, Tom Brady is 5% owner of the team. What's going to happen between Brady and Mark Davis? What could happen where Brady's football opinion doesn't get respected? You know what I mean? Or at least buy you some time. So that's the thing.
The alternative for that, though, is that Josh McDaniels was an epic disaster, and he comes from sort of the Patriots way, blah, blah, blah.
But he's always sucked I think the difference, Vrabel to me is the actual Belichick successor, because he's the only one who learned everything. Like Belichick was the greatest game planner at week to week. Vrabel was the guy on the field, like calling plays and stuff. Vrabel was the brains of the defense in a lot of ways. And
Vrabel feels like weirdly the safer option. Ben Johnson is the belle of the ball everyone's going after, but I feel like if I were the GM of a team, I would bring Vrabel in and say, I don't want Ben Johnson, I want you.
DK, I do think the Raiders fire Pierce. If you're the Raiders, would you rather have Brady go full press blitz on Vrabel, or would you like, fuck it, just hire Dion, whatever, or just settle for some other candidate?
Dion.
I mean, if I'm the owner of the Raiders,
yeah,
I don't know. That's tough. I probably would go with Vrabel.
That's the thing.
Wait, is DK the owner or is DK Mark Davis?
Both. We can give DK Mark Davis's weird hair. Would you rather have Mark Davis's hair with the exact haircut, or have
You were about to say be bald and you didn't.
I did. That is what happened.
It's a fact. It's fine to say it, Heifetz.
He's not. No, you're not bald. You shave your head. There's a difference.
Yeah, I'm pretty bald.
You said it, not me.
Yeah, I know. I'm giving you permission to say it. It's fine.
You almost said it. You started the B and then you stopped.
I didn't know. I didn't know if that was, because there's a difference.
It's like, can I call people short if they're short? I don't know if I want to say that. You know what I mean?
It's like Shea Serrano, who's not bald.
Fine.
Shea Serrano has totally normal hair, and she's been shaving it for 10 years, and none of us knew that. And then he just grew it out. So I don't even know. I'm learning things all the time.
If you're Mark Davis is hiring Deion Sanders and drafting his son,
I think so. Dude, honestly, they should do it. I think
they should 100% do it. Run it back if you're the Jets. Draft the Sanders.
Honestly, just do it. I think, Vrabel to Jacksonville makes sense to me. If Ben Johnson goes, also, you know what else would work? If Ben Johnson goes to the Jaguars, Vrabel should go to Chicago. I think Vrabel, and I think the defensive, like leaning into cold weather physical toughness, I think would be much needed. I think that he would be a Mike Ditka level. I know he was a tight end, but I think that energy would work. DK, what do you think of Craig's pitch on Sunday that the Jets should just run it back with Aaron Rodgers?
So you saying they should go with Ulrich again? Brick?
No, run it back with Rodgers. They still have to go get a coach.
Oh, okay.
But do you think the Jets? I almost think you have to think about this before you hire people, because the Jets fired the GM and coach. Robert Saleh got fired, and Joe Douglas, the GM's also been fired. You almost, in the interview process, have to be thinking about whether you want to do it with Rodgers or without. I'm obsessed with what Craig said about how you run it back with Rodgers. I kind of think so.
I think tongue in cheek, I'm really into it because it's good content. I don't know for sure how I'd feel if I was the one taking over the team, but ultimately, it's a matter of what are your other options? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Are you going to sign Sam Darnold? Absolutely fucking not. That's not going to happen. No. Are you going to go out and draft a quarterback and start building from the bottom up and just stink in year one and just kind of know that's going to be a thing? I saw, Craig, when you tweeted that out, someone said, and I thought this was interesting, it's I'm not letting Aaron Rodgers hijack another year, which I think is a valid point, because he does just hijack the whole team. Mm-hmm. But I think he gives you a better chance of being competitive than some other guy on the, basically what we know who's on the market this offseason. And considering that Sam Darnold simply will not go to the Jets, I would almost guarantee that. Like, who are the other options that they have at quarterback
you
right
could
now?
flip to the Saints for Derek Carr. I'm like, this thing is you have to pay them money.
That doesn't get you anywhere.
That's what he's saying.
The thing. I agree. I've come around, and I thought when Craig said it, it was like a bit, and I've thought about it a lot more. And maybe we're over-indexing on that one game against the Jaguars, but I'm like,
of course we are.
Obviously, it's like not even one game; it's 4 minutes against the Jaguars.
Look, they've lost 7 games by less than 6 points.
Yeah, we wouldn't be the first dudes to like make some bad life decisions on like a great 4 minutes, but but I do think
that was funny.
Thank you. Every now and then, broken clocks. I do think that like the Jets are a bad team at making decisions, and you look at this and you're like, Rodgers the first year off the Achilles, like he'll probably be healthier at the beginning of next year. The whole offseason with Devontae. I know this sounds insane. I'm sure there's a lot of people listening right now like, how the fuck could you think the Jets should bring Rodgers back? Here's how. You find a head coach who can work with him and a GM who doesn't need him. And I think that's the point. It's like the Packers in the last seasons where it's like Rodgers has no options. This isn't an Aaron Rodgers gets to like have his way and like anyone he wants gets signed. It's like he got his influence. Devontae Adams is on the team. Like, he doesn't get to pick the backup quarterback to be Tim Boyle anymore. He doesn't get to determine no more Alan Lazard trades. It's like Lazard and Devontae can stay, but otherwise, you need a motivated Rodgers. You piss him off. You do sign a bridge quarterback, but not to start. You take a risk on like, I don't know if Justin Fields is the perfect comp, but like a Justin Fields-esque former first rounder to sit behind him and like teach him, bitch. And like, you have developmental players behind him. And it's like, you know what? You're on a 1-year deal. You know what? He's not going anywhere else. I do not think the Tennessee Titans are going to take a chance on him. I don't think the Browns are going to take a chance on him. The whole, like, you're going to dictate your terms. The reality is he's going to get paid a lot of money. And the financially, it's like $50 million dead money if they cut him. They got to pay him a $35 million check to stay. But long story short, it's $50 million to cut him this year. If you keep him another year, it's $65. It's not as bad as it sounds. The NFL salary cap by the time they cut him would be $300 million. Like, it's not that big of a deal.
Do you want me to list off some of the free agent quarterbacks right now?
Yeah.
Going into next year. So
Please.
It's Sam Darnold. This is according to snaps played this season. This is the rankings. Sam Darnold, Russell Wilson, who's almost surely going to stay with the Steelers, I would guess.
Oh, yeah.
But he'll be out there.
Russ is going back to Pittsburgh. He won't make it to free agents.
Jameis Winston, Cooper Rush, Justin Fields, Jacoby Brissett, Mac Jones, Joe
Disaster.
Flacco, Andy Dalton, Mason Rudolph, Drew Lock, Desmond
That's what I'm
Ritter.
saying. What are you
There's
going to
no
do?
good
That's
options.
the thing.
It's either a trade, which could happen, a draft a rookie and know that you're going to be terrible, which, I mean, that's possible. They could definitely do that. They could go that route.
Yeah.
But you could draft a rookie and then,
I think if they had the first pick in the draft, this would be a different conversation, but they're going to have like the 8th or 9th.
They're not going to be in quarterback range. And here's the thing. I think some people are probably listening to this and like, oh, it's sunk cost fallacy because you're all in on Rodgers. And it's like, no, it's the other way around. You're stuck with this. Can you make the best of it? And I think that you have the team built for fucking Aaron Rodgers. You have a team built for this. Maybe bring in a GM and, like, honestly, I think you bring in load the trenches, add defensive linemen, add offensive linemen, and build an environment that will still work for the next quarterback. Actively search for the next guy, but go into next offseason with your O-line, Devontae Adams and Rodgers, and try to compete with the Bills for the division title with a healthy guy. And I know that's insane, and it's like the funniest possible thing, but I've come all the way around where I'm like, I do think, frankly, Rodgers will, one, play better in an environment that's not catering to his every whim and kind of makes him angry, and also, I do not see how they can do something actually better next year. Yeah.
Who do you like as coach for the Jets next year? Do you have any people in mind?
I think it's easier to find a GM than a coach. A coach that will put up with this, I'm very curious.
Do you hire a defensive coach? A culture coach? Someone like Brian Flores? Someone like so there's some of the OCs that are hot right now. Liam Cohen, the Buccaneers OC, Cliff Kingsbury, Todd Monken, the Ravens guy, Kellen Moore, Cowboys guy, Josh McCown, his name's getting thrown out there. There's a bunch of defensive guys that are kind of on the radar. I don't know, like,
of those guys, I'm not.
I don't know what I like there, really.
I think Liam Cohen for the Bucs is the offensive guy that intrigues me most. I'm not interested in Kellen Moore. No offense to Kellen Moore. I've never been super impressed with Kellen Moore as like a head coach candidate. And part of it's like, you don't know, right? I don't know if there's anything that is hard. Like, we're on the outside. Teams that get to interview these guys for 8 hours apiece 3 times, never, like, you're batting 50% at best. One of the hardest things of covering the NFL is trying to, like, see how an offensive coordinator could be a head coach. Meanwhile, even your coordinating job, now you're going to run a building of 200 people. Coordinators don't even manage the fucking clock. Never mind all the other things you have to do. I think all this time, this Bill Cowher quote where it's like, I don't coach players, I coach coaches. And there's a lot of ways to skin a cat, but I don't want to pretend to know who would work or who, but in that situation with Rodgers, maybe we're nuts and it's not going to happen.
Who's out there? Robert Saleh.
Dude, okay. My hot take is I actually think Saleh's a totally fine candidate. And like, if I could, I still think Saleh didn't get to pick Zach Wilson, didn't get to determine they wouldn't replace Rodgers after he had the Achilles injury. And I'm like, I bet Saleh would do a great job in his second stint.
I think that the Jets, maybe this is totally just like, like myopic or whatever, but they need to pick somebody who like the media knows and is not going to just make fun of. Like, no more Adam Gases, no more unknown kind of guys coming up through the ranks. Just pick like, I know that we've said Vrabel a lot, but like a guy like Vrabel where it's like he's already done it, he's established, he's respected. Somebody like that where, I don't know. I'm just thinking like the Jets just cycling through like coach after coach where it's like, I keep thinking of the Adam Gase like introductory presser where it was like, okay, this isn't working.
I feel like you need to challenge Rodgers with another offensive mind. That's why I'm like, maybe Liam Cohen could come in and challenge him enough, like Matt LaFleur did, where even if they're not best friends, it actually ultimately works out better that they're both kind of butting heads and the best product is what you get on the field. Liam Cohen basically got Will Levis a job and is the reason he is getting paid money in the NFL because he was with him in Kentucky. He continued Baker's ascent. He's coming from the McVay tree. I would rather do Liam Cohen than like another defensive-minded, hard-nosed Brian Flores type that comes in, and then Rodgers once again is just like running amok in the offense, and it's
he's just running his offense.
You can't let it be his fiefdom anymore. You're gonna have to work with him. But I agree, Craig. Rodgers has the energy of the really, really smart kid in the back of class, where if he doesn't respect the teacher, he's just a fucking menace. And but again, maybe we're insane.
Just bring Dion in.
Just throw Dion and see what happens.
You know who would be the worst for the Jets? Like the perfect example of this guy that like. I think Cliff Kingsbury should not be a head coach. I think he's come in for one good year and he's like had 6 good games. All right. We need to relax with Cliff Kingsbury. He shouldn't be a head coach for 10 years. Let's really see how this works out.
I agree. So the Jets are a tough job because that's the flip side is if you keep Rodgers, it's a tough sell. I'm sure so many emails to Ringer Fantasy Football Gmail if you're a Jets fan who's like just going frothing at the mouth in anger at how
who do the Jets fans want? That's what I want to know.
Email. Who do you want? What do you want to happen? I'm kind of I don't know. I'm amazed.
What I imagine of all the teams we've talked about, the worst team that you would want to join right now as a head coach is the Saints, right?
I think it's the Saints.
Yeah.
I think it's the Saints. The Saints are in a cap death spiral. We talk about the cap a lot. The NFL salary cap for the most
black
part
hole.
It's so. Without going into the accounting of it, just to describe what's going on with the Saints, they basically are like joining the Saints as head coach is kind of like it's like joining a company that's like under investigation by like the IRS for tax evasion, and you're gonna like go and run the company. Like the Saints, I went through this. They have to adjust literally every single veteran contract on the roster to come cap compliant, and I'll go through this list. They have already extended Alvin Kamara, who's going to be 30. They've traded Marshawn Lattimore, the cornerback. They're going to have to find someone to take Derek Carr. Like they'll probably have to trade Derek Carr away. They're going to have to cut Ryan Ramczyk.
Who's going to take him?
They're going to have to find someone and take some money to do it. They're going to have to cut Ryan Ramczyk, the right tackle. They're going to have to cut Cam Jordan, who's like the best defender they've had in years. They're going to have to cut Jamal Williams. They might have to restructure Taysom Hill, even after this knee injury. They might have to restructure him. He's 34 years old. And when I say restructure, I mean like keep him on for longer.
Like
it's like an extension. They might have to restructure and extend DeMario Davis, who at 35 is probably like the oldest inside linebacker in the NFL. They're going to have to keep him. They're going to have to restructure Kalen Saunders. They're going to have to restructure Cedric Wilson Jr. That is all to sign your draft class. That is to sign a draft class. That does not include improving the team. Then you're going to have to do it again next year. You will go in and you're going to negotiate like, oh, I want patience and all this stuff. You are the fall guy. Like you are the hot potato fall guy who will go in and do this awful job for 2 to 3 years. And then when they're actually ready, they will fire you and get someone else.
If you had to bet on the team to be the worst team in the NFL over the next 3 years, it's New Orleans?
I think so, because like they're in this middle ground where they've been so competitive because they're like leaning on these crazy veterans. So like it's short term, like you're competitive, but the bottom's going to fall out where they literally have to hit draft picks to improve. If the Saints don't hit their draft picks, they do not have other avenues of getting quality players. Like
we just did the rewatchables on this movie called The Gambler from 2014 with Mark Wahlberg. And the whole movie is he's this like degenerate poker player and he just keeps borrowing more money from loan sharks in order to pay them back. Because he already owes them money, but he has to borrow more from them.
That's literally what's going on with the players. Like, it's like, it's the only people you get money from is your loan sharks. The only way they get cap space is from the existing veterans who are 35 on the team. So I don't
It's
want
like the Martingale system. This is why you don't just continue doubling down.
And this is the Saints are the version of the Panthers last year when the Panthers hired Dave Canales. And it's because nobody like Ben Johnson, no good candidates that had options, would take a job for Dave Tepper, who was paying 3 coaches he had already fired. Like, the Saints are that job where they're going to give it to someone who frankly didn't probably have a ton of other options but wants to be head coach.
Right.
I want to ask you guys about the Giants. I think they have to fire Dable and Joe Schoen.
What a fucking mess. This whole thing was supposed to be about the post-Daniel Jones era. That's why the two of them came in. What's the Step Brothers joke, which is like, I won't say the full word, but like, we'll put up with the, you know what, in the meantime. That is like what they were doing with Daniel Jones. It was like, we're just going to ride this out and then he'll be gone and we can start our rebuild together as a duo. And then Daniel Jones had one good season. They re-signed him and everything got ruined. And I feel like Daboll woke up from a blackout and he was like, wait a minute, what happened? This was not how this was supposed to go.
To give you an idea, since they won that playoff game, like since that playoff season, the last 2 years, the Giants have the fewest points in the NFL. They're tied with the Patriots for last in points. Yeah. And
with like $100 million quarterback.
And the reason that I usually am team patience. I'm usually like, you want to give, like, you don't want to be a revolving door. There's a reason that like the Browns have had 20 coaches in 20 years and the Steelers have had 3 coaches since Richard Nixon was president. Stability matters. Having said that, my issue with the Giants and Brian Daboll is they get blown out so much. Like the Giants are
like not competitive.
They're not competitive often. And I couldn't believe this. What is your definition of a blowout? I was thinking 17-point loss or 20.
It was like 14
3
or more.
scores, I think.
Yeah.
17. The Giants are tied. They have the most 17-point losses or more in the last 2 seasons.
Okay, but
they have the most 20-point losses. Like they're getting fucking crushed.
Let me ask you this, Heifetz. So if we agree that, let's say, Ben Johnson and Mike Vrabel are the 2 top candidates right now, right? But the 2 top landing spots are probably Chicago, Jacksonville. I don't know where the Raiders fall. So let's just say you're not getting Mike Vrabel or Ben Johnson. Would you rather have the 3rd guy on that list, whoever that is, maybe Liam Cohen, Brian Flores, Robert Saleh, or would you rather just keep Joe Schoen and Brian?
I have good news. The next head coach of the New York Giants should be Steve Spagnuolo.
Again.
The defensive coordinator for the Chiefs, Steve Spagnuolo. It'll make the fans happy. Like Steve Spagnuolo was the coordinator when the Giants beat the undefeated Patriots. Best day of my life. It will energize the fans. Having said that, Steve Spagnuolo is also absolutely the right person for the job. Steve Spagnuolo has won 4 Super Bowls as a coordinator. He has more Super Bowl wins than any coordinator in the history of the NFL. The idea that he's not even like a top coaching candidate is just ageism.
Does he want to be one? Do we know that?
I think, yeah, he's like 60. He's 59, so he stopped getting interviews.
He's 64.
Okay, fine, whatever. Doesn't matter.
I'm just saying, does he want one, or is he like, hey, this is fun? I have Patrick Mahomes.
I do not think he's turning down head coaching jobs. No, I think the problem is
Patrick
in the playoffs
Mahomes
every
has
year.
him.
So
right. Yeah. Am I crazy? I'm like living in this like good is good enough. You know, don't let good get in the way, or don't let great get in the way of good.
A lot of these guys aren't wired that way, though.
No, I totally get it. Yeah. And I know that like Bob Iger came back to Disney when he had $800 million, and because these guys are wired differently. But part of me is like, you got a really good thing going right now, Steve. You and Andy Reid, Mahomes, like, just keep riding.
But the Giants, though, is perfect. I agree. I don't know if Spagnuolo would go to do it for like the Saints. I think the Giants, though, like getting to go back to where he was. And again, the other part, who is doing more with less? That's the question I ask. I would argue strongly there is actually no coordinator in the NFL that is doing more with less than Steve Spagnuolo. Did you guys know that the Chiefs have given up the fewest points in the NFL over the last 2 seasons?
Yeah, and they like have like a rotating cast at like corner. You know, they like traded away their best corner this offseason.
It's not just corner. They have given up the fewest points in the NFL with the youngest defense in the league. They just won back-to-back Super Bowls. More than half the starters on defense when they did back-to-back Super Bowls were in their 1st or 2nd season. More than half the starters. All the backups, basically. All the backups. Like, if you just look at their starting 11 on defense and the 11 guys behind them, like 16 of the 22 defenders were 23 or 24 years old. draft picks. We're not just talking, there's first rounders to Trent McDuffie, George Karlaftis. We're also talking 5th round picks. We're talking mid-round picks. Leo Chenal. Like, these guys, he coached them up and not just won back-to-back Super Bowls in the playoffs, fewest points in the league in the regular season. Who is doing anything remotely like that in the NFL? And the idea that he's not a coaching candidate because he's older, it's like, Steve Spagnuolo, he screwed up as the Rams head coach in 2011. In 2011, Donald Trump was on The Celebrity Apprentice. Like,
no, that was like
change.
a lifetime ago. Yeah. I mean, I haven't learned anything since 2011 either, though. So, maybe
right?
people don't want him. Yeah.
Your entire 30s were a wash.
Yeah.
I barely remember it. Then there was the 80s. Yeah. No, I don't know. I think, like, my question is he... Well, obviously, Craig's first is, does he want to be head coach? Second,
that sounds terrible to me to leave.
What's your
Giants.
memory of him as a head coach? Because he was the interim head coach for the Giants for like a minute in 2017. I'm just like, does he have the gravitas of a head coach? Does he want to be a head coach?
But what is that question based on? If he doesn't want to be, then he's not going to take the interview. But like, I think it's fair to have the assumption he wants to be an NFL head coach.
Let's say he doesn't.
Okay.
And Spagnuolo's out of the equation.
Who do you want?
Where's the line where you'd rather just keep Daboll and Shane?
I'll tell you right now, guys that would take over, and I like Daboll, and I've changed my mind on this recently. It's the lack of competitiveness. Belichick, I would have just given the whole team to Belichick because most of these candidates are going to fucking suck anyway. I think the thing with Belichick was no one I really considered the upside. The downsides were like so obvious of like, Belichick will be the oldest coach in the NFL again. He doesn't know it. He's going to bring in Patricia and Joe Judge. I get all the. I feel like no one ever discussed the upside of like, what if he's fucking good at the job? Belichick would have been number 1. I think Vrabel is 2. I'll take, if Ben Johnson wants to come to the Giants, sure. What are we going to do? Say no? That's 3. Liam Cohen, I think, is worth a shot. 4. I actually think Brian Flores is a really underrated candidate. He's not going to get the job because Brian Flores is suing 3 NFL teams, I believe, including like the New York Giants because of issues with the hiring and Rooney Rule stuff. And like, there's an active lawsuit going on there. So like, I don't think he's going to get a head coaching job, but I think people forget that Brian Flores, like, I understand that there were issues with the offense when he was in Miami. I understand that Brian Flores was mean to Tua. Do you guys realize that he had like the same record as Mike McDaniel as the coach while the owner of the Dolphins was actively trying to pay him to lose games? Like the allegations in the lawsuit that's come forward is that the Dolphins owner allegedly was trying to pay Brian Flores $100,000 a pop to lose so they could tank. And Brian Flores has won almost as many games that season as fucking Mike McDaniel.
I agree. I mean, I think Flores is a great option.
So he's not going to get a job because he's suing teams. But that's 5. That's 6 with Liam Cohen. I'm also the only person left in the world that would give Robert Saleh a shake. You can't do it if you're the Giants because you can't take the Jets leftovers.
Same stadium. Yeah.
Yeah. But I actually think Saleh will be a good head coach again one day. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Like 6. Oh, and Todd Monken for the Ravens. I think Todd Monken, he's another older guy. I think just out on all these young. I just don't like
Todd Monken. Send Todd Monken to the Bears.
Dude, yeah. I think there's a misnomer that like everyone needs the next Sean McVay, and this is all Sean McVay's fault. Where it's like, there's this idea that because you're young, your ideas are new. A lot of what we're actually seeing is the older coaches have the new ideas right now. That's like really what's going on. It's not just people who know Kyle Shanahan and McVay. The older communities, like the old people's libido actually starts to come back around and tick back up. Exactly.
It's like you enter like YOLO mode. And like, I'm gonna do what I've always wanted to do.
Old people fuck. Belichick, Spagnuolo. Let the old coach.
Is Spags married? What's Spags' deal?
Yeah, he's got kids. When I was when I was in the Chiefs locker room when they won the 2nd Super Bowl in a row, and Spagnuolo took a selfie with the defense. He had like an Android with one of those cases that's also his wallet. And I literally got to witness, the Progressive commercial where they can't turn the photo around with LL Cool J? And they're like, that's not how you take it. I got to witness him trying to take a selfie with his entire defense, trying to correct how he uses his phone. It was magical. Everyone loved him. Anyway.
You should stay in KC.
Be head coach. Please.
Enjoy your life.
Yeah.
4 Super Bowls not enough as a defensive coordinator?
No, win 10.
Okay, the last team I want to hit here is the Cowboys. So this isn't a firing situation. This is Mike McCarthy's contract's actually up, and the Cowboys do this all the time. They let Jason Garrett's contract run down 3 times because Jerry Jones, doesn't want to pay anyone money to not work. That's basically that's really how it is. And DK, I'm curious. Do you think the Cowboys let Mike McCarthy go and take another guy. Or, where I'm kind of leaning, this is a team that gave Jason Garrett 10 years across 3 contracts.
Dude, I was looking that up today. I was shocked to realize that Jason Garrett was there from 2010 to 2019.
They're like a bad version of the Steelers, where they're really committed, but to not very good coaches. Where the Steelers commit to really good coaches.
Every year of his contract, I believe Jason Garrett in the contract year went 8-8, and they brought him back. I believe it happened 3 times.
The Cowboys have only had 9 coaches. The Raiders have had 9 coaches since 2010.
Dude, the best
9
stat,
coaches in 15 years.
If you want to know the importance of all this, the Steelers and Ravens have had 2 GMs since Craig and I were born, basically. Or like at least since Kai was born, the 21st century. The Browns have had 10. And the Steelers and Ravens have had 2 head coaches since Kai was born. And the Browns have had 22.
I don't know what to think about I don't even know what to think about McCarthy, because like they hired he like admitted to lying about what he had done all offseason. Like he watched every single NFL
His
game
opening
or
press
like,
conference.
Like to me that would be like, okay, I'm definitely not bringing this fucking guy back. He lied in an interview. And also like his performance this season, obviously there was a lot of issues with the team across the board, but it does not command a lot of like confidence. But at the end of the day, like this is an owner in Jerry Jones who refuses to put up curtains when it's blinding all his players. He's stubborn. He's going to stick with this. I bet they bring him back.
Craig, if you're interviewing to be Jerry Jones's pain sponge / head coach, Mike McCarthy.
Pain sponge.
It is his pain sponge succession.
Just his pain sham wow.
Pain sham wow. Would you bring up the curtains in the interview?
Absolutely not. What are you talking about? You know how much I'd piss him off? That's the easiest way to not get the job is to call some old guy out about the curtains at his house.
No plan. The number one like item in my plan is to put up curtains.
No, you can't question a stubborn old man for continuing to use a boombox and not Spotify.
Oh my God.
What do you think, Heifetz?
I think they keep McCarthy.
I think they keep him. I think they keep McCarthy because it's a very specific set of skills. It's like Taken if it wasn't, none of the skills were cool that you need for the Cowboys to succeed. I also think Dak Prescott will go to war for Mike McCarthy, and Dak Prescott will very personally intervene. Like at every chance Dak Prescott has had any chance to throw him under the bus, he gets under the bus with Mike McCarthy at every turn. I think that actually means a lot. And also, again, you have Mike McCarthy has a lot of what you need to be the pain sponge Tom Wamsgans for Jerry Jones. And I actually think he stays. I do. And if he doesn't, cool. Good for content. Cool. Okay. So that's a lot of the coach openings.
There might be a few other surprises, but those are the obvious ones. Yeah.
I could believe Troy Aikman mentioned whether the Bears
should trade for Shanahan.
Kyle Shanahan on the Monday Night Football broadcast. I was like, that to me meant either 2 things. Either Troy Aikman has heard rumblings.
Nah, he was shooting from the hip.
I was going to say, I kind of think that game sucked and he had a little too much to drink.
I don't know about that, but I do think that he was just like fucking going for it and just riffing.
Do you think? I think like
he was
Shanahan with Caleb would be a bad combination. Do you like that potential marriage if it did happen? I just feel like
Shanahan doesn't like an improviser at quarterback.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. He wants like a guy who's gonna like.
But still, I mean, like,
yeah,
you take it.
It would be great for Caleb, I think, but
they want a Stafford where it's like someone who can improvise, but like all the bets are mostly going to be right, not someone you have to teach. Like they can't, you know what I mean? But also the idea, I don't know. Look, I have been hard on the Niners. Like Craig, I know your take purchase, they'd miss the playoffs. I've been saying this would be the Niners' disaster season for months. The idea that they would get rid of Shanahan is crazy to me. Like you ride it out. And like, you know, you prove me wrong. Like the idea of giving up on him. Also, what would he cost? Like 3 first
rounder.
I think you would undo that if you could in a heartbeat. Like Sean Payton went for a second. I think getting Shanahan for 3 first, I would do that in 2 seconds, which is never a good sign for a
firsts.
deal.
I think a lot of I don't know. Email us if you're a Niners fan. A lot of Niners fans in my life, if I told them they could get 3 firsts for Kyle Shanahan, I think they would do it in a heartbeat.
DK, you're telling me if Schefter tweeted right now that the Giants had acquired Kyle Shanahan for 3 first-round picks, you think that you'd have to think about whether that was a good move for the Giants?
I don't know. It just sounds like so much, you know, and it's like you can just hire a guy for no firsts. You know, I don't know. It's just weird. Like it just like it's a weird
that's true.
Trading for a coach always has felt weird to me. Like I still thought the Broncos trading for Peyton was weird. But I mean, obviously it's working for them, but
you give up your 25, 26, and 27 first to the Niners
instantaneously. I would instantaneously. I wouldn't even think about it.
I don't know. I actually don't know about that.
That's correct. That's great. Belichick went for first and second. And like, that's the best trade probably in the history of sports.
If someone was going to trade for McVay though, like I could see that, I think Shanahan's just so down. He's so downtrodden right now.
That's it, dude. I'd give up 5 first-round picks to get Sean McVay, maybe 6. 5? And that sounds like a joke. They gave up all their first and won the Super Bowl. He's 39. He's 38 years old. Yeah, I'm gonna get 30 years of him.
The fine line between McVay and Shanahan is so interesting because you're right, DK. If somebody said to me 3 firsts for McVay, I'm like, yeah, sure, that's a steal. Because McVay feels like a blend of what we've been talking about this whole time, like the culture guys, the Vrabels versus the Ben Johnson. McVay is like both,
dude.
You know what I mean? McVay is like Kyle Shanahan's brain and like Dan Campbell, John Gruden's vibes. Like he is all of it in one.
Well, that's the funny thing, too, with all this Belichick stuff and the coaching record and the wins record, where it's like, oh, like Belichick, it's like, first of all, I've never heard of this coaching wins record outside the context of Belichick cares about it. Who brings up how many coaches have won the most regular season wins? But looking at the list is funny because Sean McVay is so high on the list and he is still younger than when most of the people above him were hired. Like, he's still, like, most of the people above him were not a head coach at the age Sean McVay. It's incredible. So, I don't know. Again, I know we've done this, but if McVay doesn't retire, like if McVay coaches till 70, if he doesn't take any time off, I don't know. I feel like he's the most well-rounded coach. The idea that now he's doing clock stuff well, timeouts
case.
Well.
Have you guys, like Craig, you've obviously talked to him a bunch. Like, have you watched videos of McVay interacting with his players? I was like blown away, especially like early on, because he got hired when he was like, what, 34, 35? How old
31.
Was he? 31 years old. That's
maybe
wild.
Even 30.
But like the way he talks to players and connects with players, he just he's like, you know what I mean? Like the leader of men thing. It's such a cliche, but it is so true. When you listen to him, he's just like, you're like, this is not a 31-year-old man. I would follow this guy wherever he wants to go. Like, I want to play for him. You know what I mean?
Some people just have it. I went to his house to help like set up for the podcast, and he was just like the coolest guy in the world. Makes you feel, they always say that, like when you're talking to them, they make you feel like you're the only person in the world. Mm-hmm. And McVay has that quality. Even just like thanking me for producing the show after, just the way that he is able to connect with you through a screen even is, I was like, I'll do anything for you.
Let's play a game. Mike Tomlin has retired. He just is retired. He's done.
Okay.
Rams call the Steelers. Sean McVay's available.
Yeah. Oh my God, I want it so bad. I would do that so fast. Whatever you want. My organs.
My kidney. I got 2.
The offer. I know you're not allowed to technically trade more than 3 first-round picks. The offer on the table is 5 first-round picks. Do you go to 6? I think you do it. Like a coach. Again,
the rule is you can only do 3.
3 is the max because they don't want to.
How long is the contract that we sign him to?
A long time.
Like 8-10 years.
Yeah. I mean, but that's the thing, though. If like generally speaking, he's going to be in. Like, that's the thing. He's on the phone. He's promising you.
To be honest, it's funny how it switches when it's about my team. I would probably do that. Yeah. But when I think of the Giants, I'm like, ew, no, do that.
I know. But it's like he's 38. He's 38 years old. I'd give up 6. I don't know. I look at Sean Payton it was like, second, 2, whatever. First and second sounds like a lot. They have $90 million in dead cap, most dead cap in the NFL. Like 40% of their budget is not on the team. They're going to make the playoffs. Coaches fucking are more important than anything. All right.
Yeah. You're right. You're right. I come full circle. I just think it always sounds weird to me to trade.
It does sound weird
for a coach, but I think, I'm with you.
Also, you're buying the dip with Shanahan.
100%.
That's the thing.
100%.
Honestly, Giants, I would do 3 firsts and 3 seconds, and I would not think about it. I would not think about it. Like, get someone that I know is good. There's 5 coaches you know are good.
Dude, if the 49ers trade Kyle Shanahan, it's going to be like such a situation where they're like, oh God, I wish we never had done that. Yeah, that's within like a year.
Name a price that you will look back on and be like, thank God.
I mean, I guess Kyle Shanahan literally got the last pick in the NFL draft and made him fucking awesome. So maybe you don't need a first round pick.
I'm like, yeah, it's hello. Okay.
Oh man.
So
he also traded up for Trey Lance.
Yeah.
For the record.
Well, yeah, we'll have a conversation with him about that.
Yeah.
Reminder for everyone that it's the beginning of the offseason stuff. We're going to be looking at all these offseason teams and free agency coaches, all this stuff. Black Monday after week 18. We're gonna have fun with all the. We have some fun plans for that day with when all these things actually go down. We keep lid on that for now, but we have some fun stuff. And yeah, please stick with us for the draft show in the off season. We're gonna have a lot. It's gonna be really, really, really fun off season. So let's get to fantasy court right now.
Yeah.
Definitely don't tell anyone about this thing that you're doing.
I don't really want to be handcuffed.
The definition of an object is a material thing that can be seen and touched.
This court case now in session. This is from Ethan.
Ethan.
Dear highest court.
What's up?
What's up? I am the commissioner of a 12-team league of college friends.
Okay.
And it's a known bit for everyone in the league to team up against me. To the point where whoever's playing me each week is even known as America's team.
Love that.
I love that. So here's the situation. There are 4 teams left in the semifinals. I'm one of them. I currently do not have a defense on my roster. I earned a first-round bye, and I stashed an extra running back, so I'm adding a defense this week. There are 11 defenses on waivers. I'm the first-place team, so I'm last in waiver priority.
Oh, I see where this is going.
The plan is for the entire league, including all 8 eliminated teams, to add a defense, leaving me with nobody to play, which is hilarious, but also feels super wrong.
Objectively collusion.
Objectively funny and objectively collusion.
Right.
Definitely collusion, definitely wrong, definitely funny. As commissioner, I could lock the eliminated teams' rosters, which is an implicit but not explicit rule that that teams with nothing to play for don't improve their team. Does the league have the right to box me out?
No.
They have the right to. This is like a bit. This is a bit, and it's a long-standing thing. I'm assuming. I think he should have the right to lock the other rosters if they're all trying to fuck him over.
Look, if they're all trying to fuck you over, use your power to fuck them over. Lock the roster. There's no rule that says you can't do that. Just like there's no rule that says that they can't add every defense. So if counter is my call. Like if they're gonna make a move, counter. Yeah,
there's that Andy Warhol quote that art is getting away with it. Right. I think this is such funny collusion that like they can get away with it. Like that's really funny. I do think that him getting us to read this email and then he could play this for them. I think he can get away with using his commission powers against everyone else.
If there's like legalized collusion happening in this league, it's like kind of like that league we talked about where it's like there's no rules, the no rules league,
the
or whatever.
Anarchy league.
I just feel like the very obvious response to these people ganging up on you is to use your commissioner powers for your own benefit.
Yeah. Totally agree.
Yeah. No one else has a fucking login. Lock their shit.
Yeah. Lock their shit.
If there's no honor in this league, lock their shit.
Drop Justin Jefferson from someone's team. Who cares?
That's
just
hold that hostage.
You know what? You should just do it just to show the power you have. And then put him back on the team and then just text that person. You don't know what I'm capable of.
Yeah. If you're still thinking about picking up a defense, by the way.
If you come at the king,
how much
not miss.
Right, 100%. Oh man.
That's so good.
It's like the Matt Damon Good Will Hunting. You know how easy this shit is for me? He's just like dropping everyone's player. He's like, I can do anything.
I'm God. Okay, email us at fantasy football, Ringer Fantasy Football @gmail for more fantasy courts. Emails. I have been trying to do this with you guys for 2 weeks, and I just kept putting it off. But I am going to shout out. I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember who sent this to me. It was tweeted at us. It's incredible. You know who you are. This is amazing. Someone sent us this thing from this Twitter account named Texas Football Life, who summarized the most obscure teams that every Big Ten school has played. And it was like, because all these teams have been playing for like 120 years. Or more than that. And so I would like to read to you a list of the most obscure basketball team every Big Ten school has played.
Since when? This is 100 years
I'll give you the years.
Okay.
1943, Illinois defeated the Illinois Alumni.
What?
In an officially sanctioned game.
The Illinois,
like a bunch of old guys?
Illini beat the Illinois Alumni.
Fighting Alumni. Alumni. The Minnesota in 1897 beat the YMCA Alphas.
They literally played some
in 1897.
6-23. I thought it was a football game. It's a basketball game. 6-23.
The
in
YMCA
1897.
Alphas is easily the coolest sports name I've ever heard.
Alphas.
We need a YMCA Alphas jersey.
The Young Men's Christian
YMCAA.
Organizations or Associations Alphas.
YMCAA.
Were they all like 42 years old?
I don't know.
Just
Dude,
down
I have
on their
so
luck,
many questions
you
about
know?
this. I can't even tell you.
does
If
that
anyone
even
knows
mean?
any stories, the background, any of these emails, ringerfantasyfootball@gmail.com. Purdue in 1921, basketball, 26-19, they beat the Chamber of Commerce.
They didn't have enough people back then, Craig.
The Chamber
Not
of
enough
Commerce.
people.
What?
Well, so I think you're going to see in a moment. I think a lot of this was like a lot of sports
These are
leagues
like local rec leagues.
Yes. A lot of sports leagues started as an organization of like manufacturing. That's how football started. It was manufacturing companies that had teams. And it was leagues of manufacturing companies. Like George Halas, the Bears. It was like they were known as the Decatur Staleys because the company that employed the players was known as the Staleys. Anyway, keep going.
That is so
Is
funny.
it Decatur or Decatur?
Oh, it's definitely Decatur. Fuck. All right, add that to the
Okay.
list.
The Decatur.
Sorry, I've
Decatur.
never been to Chicago. Indiana in 1921 lost 21-34 to the Heat and Light Company.
Why are these scores so low? I guess the
dude.
answer is they're playing the Heat and Light Company.
They're playing like a bunch of guys.
No one
for
had
the Heat
invented
and
the
Light
turnaround
Company.
jump shot. No one had
Fair.
invented
These guys are
it.
probably playing in jeans.
Lincoln, all right, 1904, Nebraska beat Lincoln High School by 23. Rutgers in 1908 lost by 10 to the Albany YMCA.
Man, YMCA.
The YMCA is just fucking, they're like putting together some squads.
Dude, these are so good. 1905, Iowa lost by 20 to the Iowa National Guard.
I can't be the only one who thinks that if the troops put together a team, they dominate the NFL.
Especially, 1905. That's a good
There's
team.
been like 10 movies about that plot. That's so funny.
Northwestern in 1914 beat First National Bank.
they beat some bankers.
I
Those guys were playing in wool slacks.
UCLA in 1935 won 23-20 versus Universal Pictures.
Dude, I love this.
And wait, what year was that?
1935.
Oh my God.
USC in 1939 won by 16 against Bank of America.
Wow.
Washington in 1932, it just says won 27-19 versus Plumbers. Just says Plumbers.
Plumbers.
Michigan once beat a team called the Spark Plugs. Michigan State beat the Bank Clerks.
Bank clerks?
Bank Clerks.
They couldn't even get the bankers.
No. And then this one I couldn't believe. Oregon in 1943 won by 5 against the Harlem Globetrotters.
Oh. All right.
Yeah. So there's
God, they
I'm
couldn't even
obsessed
beat
with
Oregon.
these. I'm absolutely obsessed with these. If anyone has
love-
any context in these games, please email us at ringerfantasyfootball@gmail.com.
I love like local city sports rivalries. Like my dad was a cop and it was always like the police department played the firefighters in football every year and it was like a big deal,
yeah.
you know?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
the Army
And they-
Navy.
Yeah, it's just like they all have like their gear and they just like got super heated and they both sides on the other sides were lame and it's just like that's just I love that stuff.
It's just these built-in rivalries.
Yeah, it's so good. It's like you guys are all on the same team. You're all like trying to save people, and then in reality, it's just like they fucking hate each other.
It's like if we played
Dude,
the
yeah.
Athletic, how hard are we going?
Those things are real. There are media leagues. Didn't the Ringer used to play, or like Grantland, the ESPN league? I think they
It
used to play.
sounds
There
right.
was a
yeah.
Ringer Drew League. The Ringer was in the YMCA League. Have I ever told the story of when I had to play for the Ringer basketball team? Have I ever told the story on the
I've
show?
heard it, but you should tell this on the
What year was
pod,
this? Like 2017?
Good question. Probably 2018. Because I didn't have a real desk yet. So
Damn, where was I?
I don't know. I think you're working for the impossible Kimmy Schmidt.
Unbreakable. But I got hired in 2018 by the Ringer.
It was probably that spring.
Right before?
So
The
should I tell this-
impossible.
What did I say?
It's unbreakable. He said impossible.
Oh, I've never seen the show.
It's fine.
Oh, I was thinking of Kim Possible.
Yeah.
And-
That's actually fair.
That was like my first.
Who was
true old
voiced
man
by
moment.
Gretchen Wieners from Mean Girls, another Tina Fey property.
And I just did she was in that Christmas movie, A Christmas Quest, that I watched. Shout out Jodie Walker doing Bitchmas.
There you
Very
go.
nice. Did you watch Hot Frosty?
No, which one's that?
To be honest, I don't. It's
Is that where the
They all
hot you have
blend
the really
together.
hot snowmen?
It's like a hot blonde guy. I think. I don't
Okay.
know. Actually, I don't know what I'm talking about. I just know it's a movie that
I
it's
might
not
do.
blonde. He's brunette.
Next week, I might hit you guys with 2 Truths and a Lie.
Please
for
stop
Christmas
calling
movies.
that guy brunette.
The guy is a brunette. What is he supposed to be?
You-
Men are not
we
brunettes?
You don't call men blonde or brunette.
Is that what?
What?
Why?
It's just because it's not associated with men.
You just say he has brown hair?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
What?
What
This is like a whole New Girl bit. Like Schmidt keeps
Oh.
calling like a dude a brunette and a blonde, and Jake, what's his name?
Jake Johnson.
Jake
I'm not
Johnson's
gonna lie, I
like,
didn't know
please
this.
stop fucking saying
So
that."
Val Kilmer's not a blonde.
That's really funny.
I'm not
Please
gonna lie.
stop
That's new
calling him a
information to
brunette.
me.
Yes, DK, it is the hot snowman.
That's a great concept.
Hot blonde snowman.
Can we do a poll
No
where it's
bit.
like, did you know you're not supposed to call men brunettes or blondes, and just have like 4 answers, and it's like yes, no, and then it's like yes, I'm over 40, yes, I'm under 40.
I mean,
like,
I don't know if that's like a rule everyone knows. I just
If
don't
it's a
do it.
new girl bit, then
I'm not
I
doubting you. I'm wondering if it's an age thing because I've never heard of this, and I,
also
definitely
watched
do it.
New Girl.
I just feel like my friends would have made fun of me for this by now if this was if they had known this. I don't know how I would have escaped
I
my
have
whole life
had
without being
multiple
mocked for this.
A good friend of mine is like kind of he has light brown hair, and some people feel like he's blonde, and some people think he's brunette. So we've had plenty of arguments about that. Not once has anyone said you can't say he's blonde or brunette.
I'm not saying you can't. I'm just
Well,
saying.
you did quite literally.
Very
That was a
generally,
quote.
very generally associated with women only, is my opinion. But
So it's kind of not alpha.
maybe it's
to say-
olden times. People only think that, but
the people out there looking for strange.
right, exactly. People that say tight.
We got a tweet about a JFK quote with the term strange. DK, did you see that?
Yes, yeah.
Heifetz, did you see that? JFK himself was a womanizer and adulterer who once told a friend, "I get a migraine headache if I don't get a strange piece of ass every day."
Was that real?
Probably.
I mean, based on the
Based on
stories.
what we know. Probably.
Yeah.
Anyway, what were we saying?
I don't know. We're
I
talking
was
about
going over,
brunettes and blonde and brunette men.
Oh no, but we keep working
before
backwards.
before that, I was saying Ohio State lost by 2 in 1919 to Goodyear tires.
Okay.
Buzzer beater by Goodyear.
Wow.
I like the YMCA alphas the most.
Me too.
Use of YMCAA merch.
I would watch a reality TV show that just featured like intramural leagues of companies facing.
That's
off
actually how
against one another.
D3 leagues should like make money as that college sports become super teams and the D3 teams get left behind. They should play local rec teams and fucking destroy them to just explain how good they are at sports to get some respect. They should just destroy teams.
Yeah, I would love to watch a reality show where I'm like I live in a house with like a pizza restaurant, a bunch of workers who work in a pizza restaurant, and like every week they got to play like the guys who work in a Abercrombie and Fitch. Like that sounds
that's
great.
That's the other. Thank you for reminding me. Email us at ringerfantasyfootball@gmail.com for other weird rivalries. Like firefighters cops is a good example. Email us ones we wouldn't think of that you have experience with, like weird rivalries that we would never have thought of.
The
that
Stevedores
definitely exist.
Union versus the Teamsters. I don't know. Just throwing it out there.
Well, that was Who was versus the Teamsters?
The Stevedores? Is that even? I don't even know if that's how you
I don't know
say
what
it.
that is.
Sounds like a good example.
Longshoremen.
Yeah, dock workers versus truck drivers. Yeah, that's a good example. That's a great. Yeah, sure. Teamsters was always just a word I heard around Jimmy Hoffa. Didn't realize it was like a truck driver thing till very recently.
It's a truck driver thing, but it goes back to when they were driving teams of horses. It goes all the way back to the teams that the drivers would drive, which
makes
is
sense.
cool. I don't know.
I don't think I ever knew that's where the term came from.
There's a lot.
I'm not 100% sure that
Did
is.
they even
but
say that in The Irishman? I feel like they did.
Yeah, well, no.
if you
That's what
look
Jimmy
at the
Hoffa was like, I just
Teamsters,
need to get some strange.
if you look at the Teamsters logo, there's horses on it.
I don't know why the strange term sounds way worse than I guess it is in my
why are
head.
you guys so hung up on
It
that?
sounds so inappropriate to me, but I guess it's not.
Well, it's definitely inappropriate. It's like, I don't know, misogynistic.
That
or
word's
whatever,
been
but-
reclaimed by the Joker for our generation. Like, frankly. Also, it's weird coming from Jimmy Hoffa, who's famously a brunette. You know what I mean?
I know.
God
A
damn
beautiful brunette.
He's-
You know why? Here's my take. I'm realizing I'm gonna plant my flag of what's going on here. Men of our age don't call women by their hair color. I think that like there was
I know
blonde
it
jokes.
is kind of. I think it is kind of an archaic thing. Yeah.
I think blonde jokes were a thing when we were younger, like early internet 2000s. It was like there were a lot of blonde jokes, but like I don't using brunette as a noun. I feel like is very outdated.
Right.
Somebody's like, look at that brunette over there.
Yeah,
See?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like that accent. Yeah.
Look at that tall drink of water over there with the brunette hair.
Well, that bird over there. Yeah.
That dame.
All right. Thank you, DK. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Kai. Thank you, Carlos.
Team.
Thank you, Olivia. Thank you, Austin. Thank you everyone for listening. Email us at ringoffantasyfootball@gmail.com. If anyone can tell us about these weird-ass college games and funny stories, anyone can tell me about the Purdue versus Chamber of Commerce game, the YMCAA Alphas. Oh, my God. Get us some merch. Email us about weird rivalries
YMCA
we don't know.
Alpha merch would be something.
Let's do that. Thank you, Lord.
Lord.
Thank you, Steve Miller Band.
Sure. The Joker.
Sure.
Is that why?
Dun, 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 dun,
Is it
dun.
because
I
Heifetz
don't
said the
know.
Joker?
Is that in the Joker?
No, he has a song
That's
called The
probably
Joker.
what incepted me, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Some people call me the Space Cowboy.
You know that song, Heifetz.
I don't know.
Some
Space
call me
Cowboy?
the
Is that
Gangster
him?
Love.
You know the song The Joker by Steve Miller Band for sure.
The joke. Okay.
Wow. Doesn't know the Steve Miller Band.
That's
Lover.
it. Steve Miller Band
I'm
is
a
like
giver.
he's got who's got the boring? Oh, he's got Ronald Jones disease. It's like Steve Miller. I'm like, okay, I've
But it's
Yeah.
Steve Miller
named it
Band.
1,000 times.
Yeah.
Steve
Steve
Miller
Miller is
Band.
very generic. Some people call me the Space Cowboy.
If you don't know this song, we'll have to do 1 second song challenge next week, and I will.
Let me
I'll
pull it up. Let me pull it up. I keep typing in different versions of Steve from like people I know named Steve. I
Steve
just went over
Stephen
3 and I was like,
Miller.
Steve
You know
Jones.
that
What did
I'm
he
a
say?
joker. I'm a smoker.
I'm
Oh,
a midnight
toker.
toker.
Yeah.
Wait, you're telling me that
Playing my
song's 60
music
years
in-
old?
What?
That's a 60-year-old song?
Yeah.
50? 50
Yeah,
years
it's
old?
old school. It's like 70s.
Steve Miller. Yeah.
73. Wow. I'm not going to lie. I just assumed that was like a late 80s, like early 90s song. I think
That's
in my
not
head that was like
much farther
Weezer.
away.
I don't know who that's going to make angry, but in my head I definitely just had that in the Weezer bucket.
It has Weezer energy, I suppose, but it's 1973.
There is certain music that sounds like 20 years ahead of where it was, and you listen back to it and you're like, yeah, it would
Dude.
fit in like way later.
When I heard that song "Murder on the Dance Floor,"
Yes.
I had no idea that song was from 2001.
That sounded like a brand new song. That's a
Yes.
perfect, that's exactly what I'm going. You know what? Emails ringerfantasyfootball@gmail.com for songs that sound like 20 years ahead. Like,
I was like, "This song's great. Who came out with that?" And
yeah,
they were like, "This song's from 23 years ago." I was
Yeah.
like, holy shit.
that's how I feel
We
about
landed on the moon.
Sophie something Baxter. I was like, I don't even know who that is.
dude, yeah. That's how I feel about Yeezus. Like Yeezus, and also like 808s and Heartbreak, but like the Yeezus album in particular, like it sounds like you could put it out now and it would sound like normal. It's like there's
Yeah.
just a lot
Totally.
of music like that. Wow.
But then there's songs where you're like, oh, this is clearly old. Like Stranger Things when they played the
Oh,
Kate
yeah.
Bush song, like Running Up That Hill. You're like, this is so.
Running up the hill.
Or like what was the other movie? Andy Samberg, the time one where they're trapped. It's really good.
Oh, Palm Springs.
Yeah, the music in that one's very perfect, like 80s.
Yeah, that's a good movie.
I like that
Great
movie.
movie.
That's like a rewatchable one for me.
I like that movie.
Yeah.
I like that laugh.
God damn it.
All right.
Goodbye, everyone.